Hi, guys. Welcome to the Chat Marketing Pod brought to you by Automation Ways. My name is Chijoke, and with me is my co host, Ugo, with whom I'll be talking today about chat marketing. Ugo is a conversations marketing expert with previous experience in some of the leading organizations in marketing industry, such as Slack and Hootsuite. Um, so, Ugo, thank you for being our um, insights person today on the show. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm totally pumped and excited to be here today talking about chat marketing. It's a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and yeah, I'm really excited.
Okay, great, awesome. So today we're going to be starting right at the ground floor, right? Talking about chat marketing and trying to understand it. For those who do not get exactly what it is or who have a very limited view of what chat marketing means, would you like to maybe start by introducing what it is? What is this about? What's chat marketing all about?
Yeah, sure. So I think to understand chat marketing, we probably need to understand marketing as a whole and the traditional approach to marketing. And maybe I can go through some historical lessons around how people have traditionally communicated with businesses. So I mean, marketing is as old as man, right? People have been marketing and trying to sell their products and trying to put communicate with their customers, since time immemorial. And it's always started with figuring out what platforms users want to or customers want to communicate with. Or consumers want to communicate with. So, as an example, I mean, we had Telegram and posts. We had email, and now in recent times we now have these messaging platforms, and throughout the history of how people communicate with one another, businesses have always tried to strike that balance as to how to communicate, their ideas, their products, their services to customers. So, up until a few years ago, email marketing has been sort of top of mind for most businesses in terms of how they communicate with their audience. And it still is mainstream today. But what has happened over the past few years is there's been a shift in the way consumers are communicating with one another. I don't know how many times you send a personal email to people anymore. So maybe that is indicative of the fact that things are changing and people are beginning to communicate differently from the way they communicated, a few years ago. So people are now more open to having conversations on messaging platforms such as WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Telegram, Instagram direct messaging, and things like that. So essentially, chat marketing is just a paradigm shift from the traditional marketing over to messaging, where you have a two-way conversation between businesses and consumers, right? So rather than sort of driving people into, a landing page as a click to action, you're beginning to drive them into actually a conversation. That's why where chat marketing comes into place. So you're driving them into these direct messaging platforms where you can start to educate them about your product or your service, build trust, and then ultimately sell your products and also provide them with service afterwards. So chat marketing essentially just simply means moving people into a conversational experience where you can actually communicate with them versus sort of the traditional way of marketing today, which is basically email.
Right. That's very interesting. And so when we talk about conversations, I mean, you're talking about two-way communication, right? So what kind of campaigns are best suited for chat marketing drive?
Yeah, I think I mean that's one way to look at it. In terms of what campaigns are best. I think probably the best way to look at it is what campaigns are not best suited to chat marketing. I'd say that virtually any type of communication that you're going to be having with your customers, where there is a requirement for that two-way conversation, is really best suited for chat marketing. So whether you're trying to do drip campaigns where you want to educate the customer or the prospect about your product over a period of time, whether you're trying to build trust by sending them informational material, whether you're trying to retarget people with information, any type of campaign that is typically or it's possible today with your email campaigns are also possible on chat marketing. I think the only difference here is just that with chat marketing, you're listening, right, to your customers and your consumers, and you're able to
Right.
respond based on their actual
Their feedback.
inquiries, what they're saying, and things like
Right.
that. Yeah, exactly. So it makes it really easier when you can have that two-way conversation, because what they're asking for and what they're looking for, and you can tailor your responses based on that. And that's really where chat marketing differentiates itself from email marketing, where it's basically a broadcast model where you're broadcasting to people, and then hoping that they follow a particular funnel. With chat is a little bit different, because
Mhm.
you can hear what your consumers are saying, you can hear what your prospects are saying, and you can tailor those conversations accordingly.
Yeah, that sounds really powerful because then you're able to offer a more personalized experience. It sounds like.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's at the heart of chat marketing is personalization. It's a really key term there, because I think we live in a world where personalization is really important. Consumers have very, very high expectations about how they want to be communicated with, right? There are
Yeah.
surveys out there that suggest that people expect instant responses when they communicate with brands, and they also expect that the response is relevant to what they
Hmm.
expect from that brand. And typically, it's not that easy to accomplish through other forms of marketing, but with chat marketing, especially combined with all the tools like chatbots, like using artificial intelligence, and all these different tools that are actually easy to implement in chat marketing, you're able to really understand your customer at a personal level, and then tailor their experiences accordingly.
Great. Okay, so yeah, let us talk about chatbots. I mean, you mentioned them already. It seems like they're sort of central to the execution of chat marketing strategies.
Yes. So, I mean, when you take people into conversational experiences, there are two ways to approach it, right? You can decide to respond to each and every person who decides to send you a message on DM or Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, or any of the messaging platforms. But at some point, it can no longer scale. You may not be able to actually handle every single conversation, because depending
Hmm.
on what you do, you may want to spend more time on your actual business, right? So if you're an online coach, for instance, you might want to focus on actually closing your sales. You might want to focus on your one-on-one sessions. You might want to concentrate on building the content, which is at the core of your
Right.
business. So you may not have enough time responding to every
Yeah.
single person who messages you. So chatbot is really about scaling, right? Is really about scaling your personalization. How can I make sure that my brand voice and tone remains consistent, as I scale the conversation with multiple people, without having to do a lot of the repetitive work that comes with responding to people. So as an
Right.
example, when we think about um, FAQs, right? There are questions that you will typically get from your customers all the time. You know what the answers to those questions are. It might make sense for you to have an FAQ bot that allows your customers to interact with that bot, get the answers they need to the questions they have without having you type out those questions manually, because that would take up a lot of your time. When you
Yeah.
try to educate people in mass, you have all the ideas. You might have a ton of content that you've created. Having a chatbot would allow you to essentially duplicate yourself into a million pieces and allow the chatbot to actually convey that knowledge that you already have to people as they come along.
Right.
So it really allows you to scale. It's really about scaling, it's really about efficiency, it's really about allowing you the time to focus on the things that matter the most.
Interesting. And I mean, you must find this a lot that people are, a bit skeptical about deploying chatbots in their business. So what do you say to that? Like, how do you address that skepticism?
Yeah, it's a big skepticism that comes from the implementation of chatbots historically, or bots
Hmm.
generally having a bad rep because they seem spammy or something like that. But I think the execution,
Dubious.
yeah, they
Yeah.
do. They sound quite spammy, and what is this bot doing? I don't think my customers are gonna like it. For X, Y
Yeah.
reasons. Um, but in reality, I think what has happened over a period of time is that when you have an actual conversational strategy, you can now begin to help your bots to tailor conversations more appropriately, right? These strategies would include things like
Hmm.
understanding exactly who your customer is, what type of conversations you want to have with them, and making sure that your chatbot has the capability of replicating those conversations. Of course, there will be questions that your chatbot is unable to answer, and that is where things like AI come in to help you to kind of digest and understand questions even much better and provide the right type of answers. But also, that is where, for that sort of 20% of questions that your chatbot cannot handle, having a good handover flow that allows you to hand that conversation from a chatbot
Right.
to a human being is also a strategy that helps you to ensure that your customers are getting the best possible experience while they interact with your chatbot. So I think it comes with really planning your chatbot correctly, right? Making sure
Mhm.
that you have the right strategies in communicating with people. You have the right flows designed to guide people through that experience, and also using tools like AI to better understand the questions, because there might be questions you don't plan for, but you're constantly
Yeah.
learning from the questions that people ask and then tailoring your responses even better as time goes on. So I think it really comes down to strategy, and having a conversational strategy is not something that a lot of organizations have thought about. So I think some people who go into
Hmm.
chatbot marketing or chat marketing might start off thinking about the same way they do email slash broadcast, right? And take that approach
Yeah.
to marketing over this particular channel. But it's a little bit different when you're marketing here, because you have to start with that conversational mindset, with the mindset that you're having a conversation with your customer, and then sort of designing your flows to follow accordingly.
Interesting. So when we talk about designing the conversational experience that these chatbots offer, maybe talk to us a bit about natural language processing or natural language understanding, because sometimes chatbots do seem they come off a bit mechanical in the way they converse, right? So is there is there benefits or are there methods now to sort of maybe humanize those chatbots a little bit, make them sound a little more friendly, if that makes sense, or in line with a specific brand's tone or persona?
Yeah, I think Of course, when it comes to designing your conversational experience, yes, there are steps to it. One, is about identifying what your brand's tone of voice is all about, and being able to incorporate that in, the copy that your chatbot is going to be leveraging in responding to customers. So, which is where all that planning comes in. It's about understanding what type of conversation, like I said, you want to have with your customers. So, it's more like you're guiding them through a particular flow. Of course, yes, AI
Mhm.
is there as a fallback mechanism, to help to sort out those sort of questions that are outside of your flow. And that's where, like you said, natural language processing, which is really about ensuring that your chatbot has the capability of understanding the contextual questions that you're asking.
Right.
These chatbots have those capabilities. So, tools like ManyChat, as an example, will integrate with other tools like Dialogflow that have those capabilities. But I think the most important thing, really, for anyone who's getting started, is really about understanding the typical conversations that you're currently having with your customers, right? What are those
Hmm.
things that typically happen in your sales cycle today? How do you communicate with people currently? What are those questions that you receive from your customers? What are those things you do currently to educate your customers about your product or your service? And how do you sell today, right? Those are the things that
Yeah.
will you want to replicate within your chatbot or your conversational experience. Your chatbot is just basically an agent that is allowing you to replicate those things and to scale them.
Awesome. Okay, so for businesses or business owners who are just getting started with this stuff, what's the best way to go about it? How do you get started with chat marketing?
So I think there are a number of ways to approach it. I'll say the very first thing you want to do is to identify or articulate your current marketing processes. In fact, actually,
Hmm.
before you do that, you want to know that there are three main buckets when it comes to, chat chat basically as an experience. There's marketing, there's sales, and then there's operations. From a marketing point of view, you're trying to educate, right? You're trying to educate your customers about your service, about your product, about your capacity in the market, the things that you do well, the things that make you great. And that's really about building trust, right? So what are those things
Right.
that you can do? So for instance, if you have um, an ebook or you have a guide and you want to make that available to your prospects, then a chatbot would be a good way to actually make that available to them. Um,
Hmm.
you also have things like your sales, which is really about the sales motion, closing on a particular deal, and then finally you have operations, which is really your customer support and the order fulfillment process and all of those type of things. But I think in terms of sort of identifying, where to get started with, because there's so many things you can actually convert into a chat flow. But you want to start with
Hmm.
the low effort, high impact type campaigns, where you can actually um, achieve a lot of return on investment with very very low effort. So I'll say the first one that people typically do would be things like FAQs. You already know the questions that are typically repeated. Every organization goes through this where they receive a ton of questions about the exact same things. So you can start by automating stuff like that. They're very, very easy. You're basically creating a question and answer, and creating a flow around it. Um, that could be a starting point. You can have things like a scheduling flow. So if you're an organization that typically does like a strategy session or some kind of one-on-one, you might want to make that available through chat, capturing some information along the way. So that helps you also with your lead generation process. If you do, webinars and master classes and things like that, you might want to do that through chat as well, because there are easy flows that you can actually implement. So if you're using tools like ManyChat, they already have some templates as well that you can use. So these things really make it, those are like the easy ways to start. And also, as you're starting off, you're obviously looking at the results, and then you continue to refine,
Mhm.
what you've done. Then I think moving further away from that, you can now start to look at things like, you know, um, those sort of flows where you're integrating with other aspects of your business, things like order fulfillment, tracking. If you're an e-commerce store, as an example, being able to provide people with tracking through chat and other back-end processes that you might be running, and you want to bring that directly into your chat experience. So, but I think what's most important is starting with those sort of low hanging fruits. So, which is really the low effort, high impact type solutions, and then sort of building on top of that. You don't need to boil the ocean here. You just want to
Mhm.
start as simply as possible. The most important thing is really measuring your results as you go along the way, making sure you're learning from the results. Chat marketing has shown to have really high success rates in terms of conversion and open rates. I think the latest numbers suggest that chat Facebook Messenger open rates, for instance, are around the 80% range, while chat marketing is sitting around 17%. So, it's something that you
Wow.
want to start, and you start measuring it. And as you see those numbers, and as you see those ROIs, you will automatically know that there are more things that you want to do, you want to bring into chat marketing, or you want to bring into your chat flows. You want to build
Right.
more stuff, you want to build more campaigns, and you would see that organic growth as time goes on.
That's very, very interesting. And I know you talked a bit about this earlier with email marketing, how it's sort of on the decline a little bit. So for people who have already invested in some of these other marketing strategies, is there a way to sort of merge these two strategies, that is bring chat marketing or leverage chat marketing to perhaps even improve some of your other current strategies?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think when you think about it, people want to be communicated with through different platforms in some cases, through a combination of platforms, right? So there
Yeah.
are, and I think each platform lends itself for different types of communications as well, right? So, as an example, when you look at Instagram, you can really use a lot of your direct messaging in combination to things like your stories, or to kind of start off your campaign. So, someone comes on your Instagram story, and they reply to your, they send you a DM, and you start off a flow from there. And maybe it might be that you need to send them an invite via email to a particular webinar or something of that nature. You might want to send them, your ebook through email. And say
Right.
you already have a strategy session with them, and you want to, um, or a one-on-one or something like that, and then you want to remind them of that particular one-on-one, and then you get to send them an SMS 5 minutes or 10 minutes before that particular session. And all of a sudden you're seeing that you're using three platforms, in one. This concept is popularly known as omni-channel marketing, which is really a key area that is growing, where you're bringing these different systems together. And of course, you need a platform that allows you to orchestrate all these different platforms so that they can coexist together. So, absolutely, both chat marketing and email marketing and other forms of marketing. So having other platforms like SMS and so on can 100% coexist. And I think in simple terms is the holy grail of marketing, being able to reach people through these different platforms on the same actual campaign. So that is definitely something
Mhm.
that as an organization you have to look at. You know, you still need email. I'm not, from my previous sort of assertions, I wasn't suggesting that email is dead completely. People still need it, but you can actually optimize the way you use email, because when someone is expecting an email from you, um, it's a little bit different versus when your email is going into
Mhm.
a promotional folder, and it's just hanging out there with
Yeah,
other
like
emails,
nobody
and
reads
and
that
people
stuff.
may,
I
may or
don't.
may not look at
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's definitely, I think, the way to go moving forward is omni-channel marketing, being able to leverage all these different platforms, and working with them to provide information at key moments at the right time at the right channel for your customers.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Ugo. That sounds very, very powerful and deeply insightful. Uh, but that's pretty much all the time we have on this episode. Obviously, we're going to have many more opportunities to have these sorts of conversations. So, guys,